I have maxed out this building. In fact, I'm hiring so fast, I gotta get another building. And you know what? If I get that building before the end of the year, it'll save me over $1 million that I'd have to pay the government anyway. But on top of that, in buying a commercial building, there's 3 major perks. You know, there's the positive cash flow, which is a lot more than a residential deal. And then on top of that, I also have the net worth increase, because if I buy that property right, I could literally increase my net worth over another $1 million. And then finally, of course, you have to look at the taxes. Today, I'm gonna take you on a journey with me. We're gonna look at 3 different properties. One of these buildings has a lot of problems, but it might be worth it. Another one's empty. Another one is move-in ready. And I hope with the help of my friend Dolph DeRoos, he can help me pick the right building. And by the end of this video, you should know which one it is. Check it out.
One shot, now the future is yours. Go! I'm turning dreams into reality. Yeah. It's one shot, now the future is yours. Go!
All right, check it out. I'm gonna be meeting up with Dolph DeRoos. He's flown in town to be with me as we tour these 3 properties. Now, if you have checked out some of Dolph's YouTube channels or his other social media, for the last 30 years, he's the biggest name in international commercial real estate, and he's really been my mentor from the beginning. Now, he's flown in town because when we look at these 3 properties, we're gonna be looking at the first one that is rent ready, as in it doesn't need any work, I can move in, but I'm not sure that I'm gonna get that big of a discount on it. The second property is empty, which means that I do need to do, some build out. I got to put up some walls. So it's going to need some extra money. I want to know how he feels about that. But on the third property, I think I might be able to get a massive discount on what might end up also becoming a massive project, because it's going to be a huge renovation. Honestly, I just don't know which one to do. I've heard my realtors, side of the story, but at this point, I only care what Dolph thinks.
Seeing this one, firstly on the sheets, on the numbers, and then seeing it in person, this is a lot going for it.
Yeah,
it's
tell me
move-in ready.
Yeah, tell me what you're thinking about it.
Oh, first impressions are the location is just supreme. The way it is under the mountains here, it's got this great feel about it. I think that affects the way people have an attitude to work, is when they can go somewhere and it just feels good.
Yeah.
And I go from that a lot. It won't make my investment decisions, but when it comes to a place that you're going to own and work out of, then that's important. I love the potential for having extra car parking spaces. Whether we sell off that end portion or not, or build something there or not, doesn't matter. It's got expansion possibility.
Yeah, and I actually really like that, because there's a part of me that says, hey, in the background, dropping $5 million and adding a second property that's smaller, taller, underground garage.
Right.
We'll have to see what the city would be willing to do, because they've got. I'm sure they're not willing to go probably too high. That might be why this is Rambler in the first place.
Possibly,
but nonetheless,
there's a shortage of accommodations. So it could be commercial at the end, or even a residential condo unit, which would enable people who want to work here to live next door if they wanted to.
Yeah.
There are all kinds of possibilities. So I love that. I love the fact that it's move-in ready. And we shouldn't underestimate that, because with 39,000 square feet, if you've got to do improvements, and you're spending 40 a foot, it sounds like a number you can quickly mention. Well, that's another 1.6 million or whatever. It soon adds up.
Okay. Yeah, so on this one, I'm looking at it, and I think it'd be great for the team. I think the energy that it gives us is really, really good. I think it's a great location for my team. And then I'm trying to wrap my head around the fact that if I buy it by the end of the year, that's $1 million in savings, just from a tax perspective. And I'd like to worry about more savings next year on another project. That's just time is going to pass by in the next few months, and then I'll miss an opportunity. So part of what I'm looking at is I have $1 million in savings, and the other thing that I'm looking at is, even though I don't want to come up to 6.9, let's just say that the owner is willing to budge very little. At 6.9, if I have a capitalization rate at 7%, this is showing maybe a $7.5 million value, with the upside of being able to sell something off. But at a 6.5% cap rate, we're looking at closer to 8.1.
Right.
So I'm trying to figure out how to wrap my head around that and what I should be going for.
Also, I was doing some research on getting your accelerated depreciation all in the first year, and I think you did your calculation on 40%. There is provision in the tax code right now where you can deduct it all by the end of this year, and if you don't deduct it all, then you have to spread it out over several years.
You could take 100% in the first year? Are you serious?
Yeah.
I don't know about that one.
No, it's worth looking at. I don't know if it's restricted to different categories of real estate.
Really?
But that's what I came across in finding out that you were right about being able to deduct 40% all in the year.
Yeah.
Even if you buy it, in the last
And so
month of the
it
year.
might be even more than that.
Correct.
Yeah.
And that changes the numbers for this year again.
Well, that might change the numbers to 2.5 million in savings.
Right. Exactly. And I know we've said it already twice now, but this ability to move in straight away and devote the time that you would have spent renovating or figuring out what to do with it on the next
That's a
deal,
consideration.
that might be worth 10 million.
Yeah. So on this one, the value increase may be less important.
Correct.
I do think the best and highest use of the extra land would be townhomes versus single family. You'd get the most value. There's a guy who would already pay $10 a foot for the land that's already stated that.
Wow.
Which is probably lower than you could get, but
Right.
if you go townhomes and get paper lots, it's worth a lot.
Right. I even suggested condos
that's a
because
good,
then you get
condos,
multiple layers.
That type of use would get the most per acre
Right.
value if you do sell it off or you build it yourself.
Yeah. Interesting. And we do have the room to move the parking around, and we even don't have some of that parking needs. So if we were to sell that off, the question is, what is it maybe worth then? What's $10 a foot on 1.5
10 to
acres?
$15 a foot.
What is that on 1.5
So
acres?
600 to 800.
66,000, so $660,000.
So if we just
600,
pay to redo some parking
Mhm.
and keep the building,
Mhm.
if there's 600,000 that comes in there, plus I have the 1 to 2 million in tax savings, if all I do is increase the value by 600,000, if not 1.2, this starts to make sense.
Yeah. So much so, Kris, that if this were the only building we could look at today, we didn't have two others, I would be thinking, this is looking appealing right now.
Yeah.
I think we should look at the other two, because there might be an aspect that I find there that we say, oh gosh, we didn't think of this.
But I'm adding it up now. 600,000,
Mm-hmm.
a million. There's 1.6,
Right.
and then there's another 600,000 potentially to 1.2.
Mm-hmm.
So there's already over $2 million, maybe $2.5 million
Right.
of low upside.
Mm-hmm.
That could be as much as 3.
Mm-hmm.
All right. What do you think?
Well, I love the view. Look at that. It's spectacular,
It is
especially with the
pretty.
fall colors.
Yeah.
But it's got a couple of other features that are not quite that good.
Tell me.
Well, for one, it's not move-in ready, which means you've got to drop a lot of money to get this to the point where you can have your team move in here.
Yeah, I was guessing, Kevin, we were talking about what, $20, $30, $35 a foot to,
At least. Could be higher than that.
could be
in the
40 or
end.
50.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's not exactly an ideal time in the building market to actually buy, to renovate commercial property.
Right.
I think renovating, like right now, everything is like super, super expensive. So,
Especially when there are buildings that are renovated that you can move into.
Yeah.
And get them at a discount.
Yeah.
We're paying top dollar when we could get a discount.
yeah, so that's the disadvantage, right? I need probably $1.5 million to get this 36,000 square foot building totally up to speed.
Right.
It might increase my net worth, however, $1.5 million after that, because this is one of the cheapest properties. It's at $120 a foot empty. And Dolph, I remember when I called you up on the phone and said, hey, I just sent you an email with a bunch of properties. This is the one that you immediately responded to.
It's true. And I said we can even put an offer in below 120. And maybe your offer was a bit below the 120.
Well, I think my first offer that I put out was for, did we go 104 a foot?
102, I believe.
102.
I believe, yeah.
A little embarrassed.
No, it's good.
But we were
because at
cultivating
worst,
free
that's
options.
Yes,
Right?
That's right. But here's another disadvantage. Even if you went ahead with this, you got it at a good price.
Yeah,
There's a time delay before you can be operational here.
I know.
And there's a price attached to any time delay.
So it's interesting. We're on this journey where we're looking at 3 different buildings. We're looking at one that needs a lot of work. We're looking at one that's empty. And then we're going to be looking at a building that is actually move-in ready. And the one that is the most convenient has, smaller benefits of moving in. And the ones that require the most work can give you the most benefit. My problem is that when I do real estate, my time is valued right now somewhere between $250,000 and $300,000 an hour. So, if I just spend 10 hours on the project working with someone who's in charge of, the rehab and picking the colors and doing it right, because this is a personal project for my team, I'm a little worried that in opportunity costs, this building is going to cost me millions of extra dollars.
Exactly.
Dolph, this is nearly 50,000 square feet.
That's the largest of the 3.
This is the largest of the 3. And this one's going to need the most work.
Okay.
But I've got to say there's a couple things I like about it. If you step up these stairs and look over this glassway and the courtyard that's down below, it's kind of open inside.
Oh yes, okay, that's nice and airy.
Yeah, part of me thinks that there's some modern floating steps, and this could actually be transformed into something quite beautiful.
It reminds me of a university campus. It's got that feel about it.
It does.
Yeah. Okay, thank you. This is a 6-month project.
Yeah, I'm afraid that it's not a 6-month project. I'm afraid that this is going to extend longer than a year. My last commercial project, technically we haven't closed the books on it, and we started that thing a year and a half ago.
Yeah. Wow, and it's still ongoing.
It's still ongoing. So the building market's pretty crazy right now. That does not make rehabbing, super favorable. Right? I'm going to show you a special feature. Is it right here? I think it might be a floor upstairs. Wait, it's right here. Come right here.
I feel it here already.
Yeah, come here. Well, this is where they had the bodies. We're not confused.
You'll never lose your marbles here because
they're going to slow. They're going to roll. You see the Y on that mountain right there, Dolph?
Yes, I do.
That's what brought me to Utah.
Oh, really?
BYU.
Huh.
Third day of college, met my wife.
That is astounding.
Yeah.
Where did you come from?
Stand right here. Look at this. Do you see the tallest building that you can see over there?
Right.
It's called the Swigget.
Uh-huh.
We met in the basement of that building in a computer class, working on math.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Where did you move from? Where were you living?
I was living in Seattle. I just finished a 2-year mission for my church, and we came out here, and I never got away.
Yeah, you're still here. I know. It's
Built my original portfolio out here. Then I sold all that off.
yeah.
But by then I had all of my teams and people, and so Utah's become home. This building is it's a little bit different than the other two, right?
It's different from most commercial buildings.
Really?
Oh yes. Well, it's the largest one we've looked at, right? It's 50,000 square feet.
Yeah.
Okay, that's significantly larger than the others. It's got a more interesting layout. It's on 4 or maybe 5 levels. It's got some stunning views from up top.
Yeah, those are definitely the pluses.
I think they're the only pluses.
But if on that empty building I have to drop $1.5 million in it, I mean, I can wrap that into the loan.
Right.
I don't think this is a $1.5 million deal. I think this starts with an extensive tear out. And on that other one, if I'm $35, $40, or $50 a foot, Kevin, on this one, what am I going to be? I've got to be closer to what? Like,
I think Cody was underselling. He was selling 20, 30, 40, but I think you could easily be 50 to 80, depending on what you do.
I think so. And again, it's not just the money, it's the time to do it.
Yep.
I think, you're talking about another building you're working on. You've been in it for 1.5 years and it's not finished yet.
Yep.
How long is this one going to take?
This feels honestly like a project. And on this building, I would focus on leasing it out to other people.
Right.
So I'd be feeling the pressure of like, I got these payments, I have to finish my reno so that I can go ahead and get it leased, but I can't get it leased because I can't finish my reno. And I might not be $1.5 million, I might be $2.5 million for me to get this up to a level that I would like to bring the building up to. So that's probably my biggest concern on it is it's a project. Now, by the way, my time is now worth a lot. There was a time when my time was worth $15 an hour. And then I figured out how to make that worth $100 an hour, and then $1,000 an hour, and then $5,000 an hour, and then $100,000 an hour. I'm at a point right now that if I want to put even a little bit of time in this is going to become really, really expensive.
I think there is one of the 3 buildings we've been looking at that has a very short path to being up and running, to getting depreciation allowances, to getting your team moved in, and to having in cash flow.
So for me, guys, there's really 3 things that I'm looking at. When I say what are the benefits, right? Aside from the fact that this is a building that I want to lease for my team, I'm like, there's 3 things that I need to look at. The first one is what kind of positive cash flows are going to be on this property if I lease some of it out. And by the way, I'm leasing this to my company, and I want to lease it at a fair price. And so I want there to be that positive cash flow going to me personally, who's buying it as a separate entity than my company.
Of course.
Then I've got the tax benefits. And then number 3 is I have the net worth increase. And so I'm trying to look at all 3 of those factors. And so let's just start with just cash flow on all 3 of these properties. Kevin, let me come to you on this one. Where is my cash flow going to do best on these 3 properties?
Well, this one, we did run the numbers, and you should be able to rent it out where you could get about $12,000 a month cash flow at market rents above your mortgage.
Okay, so after paying my mortgage, even if I'm leasing the entire building to myself, or
at
even
a fair market rate, yes.
At a fair market rate, there's $12,000 a month.
Yeah.
Do you know how that compares to the other two that we looked at?
Off the top of my head, I don't. We did run the numbers. We have that information, but I don't remember
All right.
quite how well that does compare to those two.
So cash flow is just the first consideration. I'm like, okay, that's 6 figures, and so that's one thing to consider. Then I'm looking at the net worth increase. On this building, if I drop $2.5 million into it, what might I, at fair market rent and the cap rate, what might I be able to increase my net worth by on this particular property?
You could go ahead and flip it. So if you end up buying it for $6 million, we're putting a 7 cap at about $8.2 million sales price. So you could get some, you could get a good return if you had good tenancy in here.
Okay.
And it's sold at a market cap rate.
Okay.
I actually do have the numbers on the other one. I think I took pictures of that.
Okay. So this one, Dolph, I might be able to increase my net worth more than the other two. It just comes at a huge cost of my time.
It comes at a cost of time and money
Yeah.
to get to that point. And what if the time is overrun and the money's overrun? Then it's going to be a bigger cost. Whereas what could you do in the building that requires less time and less money and perhaps a less of a lift, but you get immediate depreciation breaks this year still.
And I wouldn't get that on this property because
Right.
I have to be able to rehab it,
Uh-huh.
at least move in and have, be able to move in on it. This isn't going to be move-in ready by the end of the year.
No, and you'll get it next year. You'd get the same depreciation allowance next year.
Yeah, but I'll
that's
never be able to go
a
back
year
in time.
later.
I'll never be able to go back in time
None
and
of us
save
can.
this $1 or $2 million.
I've tried, it didn't work.
Yeah, so let's actually just run the numbers basically off of net worth increase on these 3 projects, and let's also talk about the tax savings.
Okay.
Let's start with the very first building that we looked at. On that one, I might only be able to increase my net worth. We'll call it $1 million, but I know that I at least have, we'll call it $1 million in savings. So that's a $2 million immediate impact. One on net, one is going to show up on the balance sheet, and then the other one's going to show up in my pocket, as in there's a physical $1 million that is sitting in an account right now that is waiting to go to the IRS next year that'll literally just get transferred right back into my personal use account. If we take a look at the empty building, we thought that on that one, it's less work than this one for sure. We can increase the net worth by maybe how much? Is that one $1.5 million?
So that one we could buy for ballpark 4 hopefully, and at a 7 cap we'd be at 6.4 million.
Okay.
And
But is that after rehab?
that is that doesn't include the rehab. So you'd have to put in those dollars.
Yeah.
to get
So
those
after the rehab, I'm
to do
thinking
the
that I'm going to be closer to 1.5.
1 million,
Yeah.
maybe 1.5.
1 to 1.5. So very similar to the first project, maybe a little bit more upside, and I'd still get that $1 million of tax benefit. It's a little less expensive. I'll be pushing it, but at that 40%, I should be fine. And then let's take a look at this one. This one, if I have to put 2.5 into it, what's my net worth increase going to be?
So if you get it for 6, I don't 135. Maybe it's about 6 is where they're at. Maybe in the end, put 2.5 million.
I'm going to be at 8.5.
Yeah, and we ran this at a 7 cap at 8.2.
So I'd actually be upside down 300.
Might be able to break even in the end.
So
depending on how you
so
do it.
check it out. This building, I put the most time, effort, money, and energy into, and I'd wind up upside down. But on the other 2 properties, I'd be up somewhere between $1 and $1.5 million. So I get the tax benefit, but that's it. So this building's out. There's no way that I can do this project. It's
It doesn't make sense.
I wouldn't take it.
no, and it's also ugly, right? It's got problems.
It's the hardest to rent out too,
It's the hardest to rent out.
actually.
Yeah, so it's not favorable. So we're gonna ditch this one. Also in the negotiations, I think they were still requesting $135 a foot from they came down $15 a foot. And I'm like, no, I don't think you guys realize how big of a problem this property is. So we're gonna walk from this one. Now let's compare the first 2.
Okay.
The numbers are very similar, but one building feels good and ready to go, and the other one doesn't. So Dolph.
Well, I personally think the writing's on the wall. The one that is ready to go is also the one that feels good. It requires the least amount of work, the least amount of time. We like the high ceilings. We like the layout. We like the fact that it's got the gym and the kitchen, and then all the features of it are great. And it's got extra land.
But we shouldn't. Let's actually talk real quick about that extra land off, because if we sell that off for $600,000 or use it to build condominiums in the future and make a few $1 million, there's some upside potential on that. So even if the empty building has a little bit more upside in equity, the The first building actually has more equity in the land that could be sold off and developed.
Exactly.
So that one, that's the one.
And you know what's great about this? All the advantages point in one direction. Imagine if this building had the advantages on equity upside and another one had an advantage in cash flow and tax deductibility, but the other one was the better feel and looked better and felt better. Then you've got a challenge. How do you balance all those things? But right now, fortuitously for us, all of the advantages tend to point towards one building. That makes the decision very easy.
Well, check it out. Dolph definitely helped me find the property that I need to pursue. I'm really excited about it, right? There's $1 million to gain in net worth, there's $1 million in tax benefits, and there might be millions of dollars in a piece of the property that I can further develop. But aside from that, if you aren't following Dolph on YouTube or social media, click the link below and learn more about him because he's just such a great man to learn from. In addition, if you want an easier turnkey time getting in the game of real estate, if you want to partner with me on some of the deals that I'm doing so you can start building that cash flow, that net worth, and those tax benefits, there's a link right below for you to learn how to partner with me, and let's get going right now. By the way, if you want to learn from me and Dolph how to do real estate with no money down, check out this video right here. You're going to love it.
And you're filming me getting out of this. This is great. What's a thing to get out of? You need a shoehorn to get in and a corkscrew to get out. But anyway. In a manner of speaking. Well, good.
Well, let's go check it out.